I never thought I'd feel so utterly invisible in my own family, but that day proved otherwise. It started with a phone call from my roommate. My voice shook as I told her I had just been in a car accident. My car was totaled, airbags deployed, and I was left in the hospital with a concussion and a broken leg. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was terrifying. Naturally, the first people I called were my parents. I was still groggy from the painkillers, but I managed to dial their number, desperate for comfort. "Mom, I've been in an accident," I said weakly. "I'm at the hospital." "Oh my God! Are you okay?" Mom asked. Her voice panicked. I think so. My leg's broken, and I hit my head pretty hard." She sighed with relief. "Okay, honey, I'll tell your dad. We're at your brother's awards ceremony right now. He's getting the big academic honor tonight." "Wait, what?" I blinked, trying to process her words. "We'll call you back as soon as it's over," she said quickly. "Love you." And then the line went dead. I stared at my phone in disbelief. My brother's award ceremony? I was lying in a hospital bed, barely able to move, and their first instinct was to prioritize his night over me. Hours passed, and they didn't call back. My roommate eventually arrived and stayed by my side, but my parents were silent. I tried calling them again, but it went straight to voicemail. The next morning, I woke up to find a series of texts from my mom. "We're so proud of your brother." One read, accompanied by photos of him holding his plaque and smiling for the cameras. Another text followed. "How are you feeling? We'll try to come by tomorrow if we can." Tomorrow. If they could. I felt a knot tighten in my chest. It wasn't just about the accident anymore. It was a culmination of years of feeling like I always came second to my brother. He was a golden child. Straight as valedictorian, full ride to an Ivy League school. Meanwhile, I was just me. When they finally showed up 2 days later, their demeanor felt almost casual, like they were dropping by for a coffee. "Sorry it took so long," Dad said. "You know how busy things have been." I wanted to scream, to make them understand how much their absence hurt, but I didn't. Instead, I just nodded and let them sit there, awkwardly asking me questions about my recovery. It's been weeks since that day, and while my body is healing, my heart feels heavier than ever. I haven't spoken to my parents much since, and honestly, I don't know if I even want to. I get that my brother's achievements are important, but when did I stop being important to them? The days that followed felt surreal. My parents went back to their lives, posting pictures and stories about my brother's award ceremony on social media. Not a single mention of my accident or the fact that I was still limping around my apartment with crutches. It wasn't just about the award. It was about everything that came before and after. My brother had always been the one they bragged about at family gatherings, the one they rearranged their schedules for. I was an afterthought. Even when I was a kid, it was the same. My soccer tournaments were cute, but my brother's debate competitions were prestigious. If I got a B+ on a tough test, they'd nod politely, but if my brother aced his, they'd take him out for dinner. I thought it was just sibling dynamics. I told myself I was overreacting, that I was just being dramatic. But lying in that hospital bed, scrolling through their celebratory posts, it all hit me like a tidal wave. I wasn't overreacting. This was my reality. A week after the accident, my mom called. "Hey, sweetie," she chirped. "How are you feeling?" "I'm fine," I said. My voice clipped. Good. So listen, your brother has another big event coming up next month, and we were thinking of flying out to see him. He's working so hard, you know." I didn't respond right away. The silence on my end must have tipped her off because her tone shifted. "Is something wrong?" she asked cautiously. That was the moment I snapped. "Wrong?" "Yeah, something's wrong, Mom. I was in a car accident. I could have died, and you didn't even bother to come see me until 2 days later. And now, all you want to talk about is another one of his big events. Do you even care about me, or am I just a footnote in your lives? She sputtered, clearly caught off guard. Honey, that's not fair. We love you. You know that. It's just your brother's achievements are so significant, and we want to support him. Significant? I repeated, my voice rising. More significant than your daughter being in a hospital bed? More significant than me, periods? Don't twist this, she said defensively. It's not a competition, isn't it though? I countered, because it feels like I've been losing for years. She went quiet, and for the first time, I felt like I had the upper hand. But it didn't feel good. It just felt hollow. The conversation ended awkwardly, and I haven't heard much from them since. My brother texted me once, apologizing that he didn't know it was that serious. I didn't bother replying. In the weeks that followed, I started to reevaluate everything. I leaned on my friends more, realizing they were my real family in so many ways. My roommate even organized a small gathering to cheer me up, something my parents never thought to do. I've started therapy, trying to unpack the years of feeling second best. It's helping, slowly but surely. And while I'm not sure where my relationship with my parents stands, one thing is clear. I'm done chasing their approval. If they can't see my worth, that's on them. I'm learning to see it for myself. Weeks turned into months, and though my leg healed, the fracture in my relationship with my parents remained. They called sporadically, always polite, always surface level. How's your recovery going, or do you need anything? But I could tell they were treading lightly, unsure of how to navigate the rift that had opened between us. For a while, I tried to pretend it didn't bother me. I told myself I didn't need their validation, that I could move forward without their support. But the truth was, their absence left a void that was hard to ignore. One day, I got a text from my brother. Hey, can we talk? I hesitated before responding. We hadn't spoken much since the accident. It wasn't that I blamed him. He didn't ask to be the golden child, but there was a resentment I couldn't shake. Still, curiosity got the better of me. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop near my place. When I walked in, he was already there, fidgeting with his cup. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. Hey, he said when I sat down. Hey, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. There was an awkward pause before he finally spoke. Look, I know things have been tense lately, and I know a lot of it is because of, well, me. I raised an eyebrow. It's not your fault that Mom and Dad prioritize you over everything else. He winced. I know, but it's not like I asked for it, you know? They just do it. And I guess I've gotten so used to it that I never really stopped to think about how it affects you. I wasn't expecting that level of honesty. It's not just this one time, I said, my voice softened now. It's been my whole life, really. It's like no matter what I do, I'll never measure up. He nodded slowly. I see that now. And I'm sorry. For what it's worth, I don't think they realize how much it's hurting you. They're so focused on trying to celebrate success that they don't see the cost. We talked for a long time that day, more openly than we ever had before. He admitted that the pressure to be perfect weighed heavily on him, too. It's exhausting, he said. Sometimes I wish they'd just chill and let me be a normal person. It didn't fix everything, but it was a start. For the first time, I felt like my brother and I were on the same side, navigating the complicated dynamics of our family together. As for my parents, I decided to write them a letter. It was easier than trying to say everything out loud. I poured my heart into it, explaining how I felt overlooked and undervalued, not just after the accident, but for years. Their response was mixed. My mom called me in tears, apologizing profusely and promising to do better. My dad, on the other hand, was defensive at first, insisting that they always tried their best. But over time, I noticed small changes. They started calling more often, asking about my life instead of just updating me on my brother's. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Now, I'm learning to set boundaries. I don't drop everything for their approval anymore. I focus on the people who show up for me, who make me feel seen. And for the first time in a long time, I'm starting to feel like I matter, not because of what I achieve, but because of who I am. My journey with my family isn't over, and I know there will be bumps along the way. But I'm learning to value myself. Even if it took a car crash to get here months after writing that letter, things had started to settle into a new normal. My parents weren't perfect. They still had their blind spots. But they were trying. They called me more frequently, not just to check in on my health, but to genuinely ask about my life, my job, my friends. It felt strange at first, almost like we were strangers trying to build a relationship from scratch. My brother and I also grew closer. He made an effort to include me in his life more, inviting me to his events or just texting me to see how my day was. We even started joking about our parents' favoritism, though the humor was bittersweet. But the biggest change wasn't in them, it was in me. I started focusing on things that brought me joy and fulfillment. I picked up hobbies I'd always been curious about but never prioritized, like painting and yoga. I strengthened my friendships, investing in the people who had always shown up for me. One day, while flipping through my journal, I found an entry I'd written shortly after the accident. The words felt heavy, filled with pain and frustration. But as I read them, I realized how far I'd come. Still, there was a part of me that felt the need for closure, a way to fully address the years of feeling second best. So, when my parents invited me to visit for a weekend, I decided to take the opportunity to talk to them face to face. When I arrived, it was clear they were nervous. They hovered, asking if I needed anything, almost overcompensating. After dinner, I finally spoke up. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady but firm. They exchanged a look before nodding, settling into the living room with me. "I just need to say this," I began. "I know you've been trying and I appreciate it, but I need you to understand how deeply it hurt me to feel like I didn't matter. Not just after the accident, but for years. I always felt like I had to fight for your attention, and even when I tried, it was never enough." My mom's eyes welled up with tears, and my dad looked down at his hands, visibly uncomfortable. "We never meant to make you feel that way," my mom said softly. "I thought we were doing what was best, supporting both of you in the ways we thought you needed. But I see now that we miss so much." "It wasn't intentional," my dad added, his voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "But that doesn't excuse it. I'm sorry." Hearing those words lifted a weight I didn't even realize I was still carrying. It didn't erase the past, but it gave me hope for the future. "I don't need perfection," I said. "I just need effort. I need to know that I matter to you as much as he does." "You do," my mom said quickly, "and we'll do better. I promise." That weekend marked a turning point. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a step forward. My parents started showing up in small but meaningful ways, sending me flowers on my work anniversary, asking about my hobbies, even planning visits around my schedule instead of my brother's. And for the first time, I started to believe them. I'm not sure what the future holds for our relationship, but I know I've grown stronger through it all. I've learned to speak up, to set boundaries, and to prioritize my own well-being. And while I'll always wish things had been different from the start, I'm proud of the progress we've made, and of the person I'm becoming in spite of it all. Sometimes, life gives us a chance to rewrite our story, even if the beginning was messy. And I'm determined to make the rest of mine something worth telling.